Josh Bell waived by the Miami Marlins. However, he is still playing right now. Recording this right now, and the Sunday game is still happening, and Josh Bell is playing. Why is Josh Bell still playing? What are the Marlins trying to do with this? Is he still available for trades? We're going to break into all of this right now, as well as recapping on the final Jazz Chisholm Jr. trade package after yesterday's emergency podcast. This is Locked on Marlins.
You are Locked on Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked on Marlins. This is your daily Marlins pod. I'm your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up, of course, at Miami Marlins _UK. If you're listening to the pod, firstly, hello, welcome, happy Sunday. Thanks for making Locked on Marlins your first listen of the day. This is your team every day, and it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. There is a YouTube channel as well. Make sure you hit subscribe over on the YouTube channel. Let me know your thoughts on this strategy around Josh Bell. Equally, let me know your thoughts on this Jazz Chisholm Jr. trade package. And equally, we need to talk about reliever value. There has been a lot of deals happening. There is, no one's waiting to the deadline this year. Deals are dropping like fast and often. It's been pretty wild. But the Padres in particular make a huge deal seemingly for a reliever. So the Marlins still, AJ Puk has been moved, but no one else yet at this point. And so, I think the market remains extremely active. Clearly, Tanner Scott is the crown jewel, but there's other guys. It's interesting to see how the Marlins play this one. So tons to get into here on a packed emergency podcast kind of episode for Josh Bell being placed on waivers. Where there's news, there's an emergency podcast. We'll hit it. This episode is sponsored by good friends over at SupplyHouse. And SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to get parts fast. Shop your next plumbing, HVAC, or electrical job and get shipping from coast to coast at SupplyHouse.com. So, guys, let's start with the breaking news. In many ways, the Josh Bell has been placed on waivers. There was some reporting around this. He was on outright waivers. Actually, he isn't on outright waivers. He's then been corrected. He's just been placed on waivers. So Josh Bell remains on the roster. He's playing right now. He was in the lineup today on Sunday. And there's a little bit of confusion around this. Like, okay, what's going on here? Is Bell being DFA'd? Baseball can be pretty confusing, I think, with all the different permutations and situations about what's going on. So I'm going to try and break it down as best I can. There's a Marlins UK group chat, and this was one of the themes of this. It was like, Pete, try and tell me what the hell's going on here. What are the Marlins doing and why are they doing it? So Josh Bell at this point, he is owed circa, a third of his $16.5 million. So I think it's like $5.5 million. That's the money he's owed the rest of the way. At this point, the Marlins, and the timing is very interesting, they place Josh Bell on waivers specifically. He's not being DFA'd. It's not outright waivers. He's just been placed on waivers, which means he will continue to play for the Marlins. Teams have 2 days to submit claims for Josh Bell. Once he passes through waivers, then he can effectively just carry on and may continue as a Marlin. The Marlins may decide to release him, etc., etc. But really, considering the timing, the reason why this is interesting is he's placed on waivers in advance of the deadline itself. So the Marlins will know by the deadline or in advance of the deadline whether anyone has submitted a claim. What they're basically saying is, if you want to take Josh Bell for free, i.e. we're not expecting a prospect return, then you can take him. You've got to pay the money though. So whoever claims Josh Bell is claiming him and the $5.5 million owed. That's the situation. The Marlins are putting him out there to say, take him for free, prospect-wise, you pay the money. We're happy with that. The Marlins are happy with that. And I guess where this comes down to is they're probably not expecting to get a prospect back that equates to the circa $4-5 million they may have to eat in response to this. Let's kind of remember what the first round pick slot value is going. This year was way under for the Marlins slot anyway, 16 and PJ Morlando. So we're talking about mid-ish round, early ish round one signing bonus numbers here. This is kind of what we're talking about here. So the Marlins aren't going to get like a round one guy back, obviously, for this one. So Josh Bell placed on waivers. He's available for any team to select him and claim him. He will once the waiver period ends, the one with the highest priority will receive him, and thus they will go over to whatever club that may be, and they continue to pay down the rest of Josh Bell's salary this year. In reality, I think this is pretty much an administrative move from the Marlins, where right now with Josh Bell, they will be working to find a way to deliver some value back. So my expectation is with Josh Bell that the Marlins do end up trading Josh Bell. They do end up paying down a portion of this salary, and there will be some sort of return coming back. That's my gut feel on this one. We'll wait to see. It could go in a few different directions, but we'll wait to see. I mean, really, when we look at Josh Bell, I think this is a really interesting part of him. In reality, he was in kind of like a similar situation last year where he was, performing relatively poorly with the Guardians. The Marlins had a huge need to try and add some thump, some first base power, and just, shuffle the deck a bit. Bell comes in and, was sensational. Him and Berger, both of them, just inspired the Marlins. It reinvigorated the offense, which is kind of like, it was already struggling, but it gave him a little bit of a lease of life. We go back to, the numbers for 23 with the Marlins. Josh Bell ends up playing in 53 games, 224 plate appearances. In those plate appearances, he hit 270, 480 slug, and was on base 338. So that gives you an OPS of 818, an OPS plus of 116. That included 11 home runs and 9 doubles from Josh Bell. So, he's come out of this All-Star break hot. It looks like Josh Bell seemingly, last year and maybe this year, he heats up. You get a hot Josh Bell once the All-Star break's kind of out of the way. He likes the second half. He likes summer ball. He likes hot weather ball, maybe. I don't know. It's been a poor year for him generally, for the Marlins thus far. But right now, he's absolutely on fire. And you look at like his total body of work. Right now, he's got an OPS plus of 92. An OPS itself of 699, hitting 239, and the slug at 396. 14 home runs, though, and that has generally been in the last 6 days. 5 home runs for Josh Bell in the past 6 days. I put it out there to say he's the hottest hitter in baseball right now. I went to Fangraphs roster resource, and they have him down at number 2 ranking right now in the last 7 days of their power rankings stats. So maybe I slightly oversold it being the hottest hitter. I don't know. But Josh Bell is absolutely on fire. And you just have to consider, this is the type of guy that hits from both sides. If you're looking for a first base, DH, you can hit from either side, a power stick, bench bat, whatever it might be, but also a really solid clubhouse guy, a guy that there's no bad words said about Josh Bell, just like a stud vet, great for the clubhouse, no messing, all business. There's a lot of value here in Josh Bell, in my opinion. The challenge the Marlins have clearly is that, there's a relatively sizable portion of dollars remaining on him. The production hasn't been good thus far, but he's now hot. And last year tells us that it's sustainable. And also it tells you that it's the type of stick that you can add in and can give you that little kind of spur on. So I'd look for maybe, teams where the offense is, a little bit underwhelming. In some ways, I maybe look to the Mariners, where they've got a similar profile to the Marlins in some ways from last year, where they were led by their pitching. All their pitching ranks were great, and then the hitting stats were completely putrid. And I'd look maybe like the Mariners, for example. The other team too, let's not rule out maybe a return back to the Pirates. They're in the mix again at the moment. So I could see a few teams being interested. I think the Marlins, to get anything done, they're going to have to probably eat most of the money. And then we'll see what the return is. I don't think it's going to be anything huge, obviously, but, anything back at this point is valuable. I do think it's interesting, will be interesting if Josh Bell goes unclaimed and untraded, what the Marlins do at that point with him, do they just simply release him and allow him to maybe catch on with another club after the fact? And I think that probably hurts things from a trade value perspective again, where teams will kind of know that that's probably what the Marlins will do. They've got a guy they've just recently traded for. We'll talk about maybe him shortly. You got a guy that they've traded for that is on the 40-man that can play first base, and maybe they'd want to have a look at him. We'll talk about that. They've got Troy Johnson. They've got other guys maybe they'd want to see. So the Marlins may prioritize those plate appearances or at-bats with other guys within the organization. So I do think it's very interesting to see which way it goes. But inevitably, I think Josh Bell ends up getting traded. I think the Marlins eat probably $5 million. They'll send $5 million with Josh Bell. I think they get, 2 teenagers, maybe a pitcher. I don't know. I can see that happening for sure. Let me know what you think, whether you think Josh Bell's going to go, whether you think he's going to stay, whether hopefully I've cleared it up for you. Josh Bell on waivers has not been DFA'd. He is just placed on waivers. Teams have 2 days to place a claim and take Bell and his contract. Gut feel is that won't happen. Then the Marlins will know in advance of the deadline. They'll have a window of a few hours to maybe make a deal in the meantime, if indeed they want to, or if they haven't already. So wait to see. Let's hit the first ad, and then let's talk about the full package from Jazz Chisholm Jr. From yesterday's trade. As you know, I recorded that immediately after the news broke, so I didn't have the full package to talk through. So let's do that. Firstly, let's let you know about our good friends over at Booking.com. And this episode of Locked On Marlins is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. And with summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you have always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities. Who's been in Milwaukee this weekend? If you have, you've seen a series win and maybe a sweep. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city. For me, whenever I'm traveling for baseball or sports in general, Booking.com is the go-to app. I find exactly the location I want to go to, price I want to pay, and the type of hotel I'm looking for. No doubt about it. For the London series, I was all over it. I left it late, but I found what I was looking for at the best price. So from hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the US for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any US city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app. And this episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. Even this Marlins season, I don't want it to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Right, guys, welcome back to Locked On Marlins with me, Peter Pratt. It's an emergency podcast. Josh Bell has been placed on waivers. I don't think there's ever been a waiver emergency podcast before, but here we are. As I always say, if there's news, there's an episode. And there's news, and so there's an episode. Even though the Marlins are playing right now, I snuck away for a quick 25-minute extravaganza. Let me know your thoughts on Josh Bell on waivers. The Marlins time it right. They're hoping that someone comes and claims him and his $5.5 million owed. My gut feel is that they still end up trading him, eating the dough, and getting some a prospect back or something in return. We'll wait to see. And frankly, there's value there with Josh Bell. We saw it last year with what he injected into the Marlins offense. We've seen that he's the second hottest player on the planet right now. I mean, what's not to love with Josh Bell? So I expect him to be moved. Clubhouse stud, no doubt about it. So, full year of Berger and Bell wasn't to be. Doesn't look like it anyway. Wait to see. Let's segue over back. Let's reverse it and go to Jazz Chisholm Jr. As I recorded yesterday, I didn't know the full package. We knew Jazz going to the Yankees. We had the name Augustine Ramirez was one of the names, but 2 other prospects were unknown at that point. Jared Cerner, a middle infielder, was added to that. A lot of people like him. And Abraham Ramirez. So 2 Ramirez's in there. Augustine, the catcher, who looks like he probably isn't really much of a catcher, probably a first base prospect. Abraham Ramirez, a young shortstop, and Jared Cerner. Now the dust has settled, how are you feeling about this Jazz Chisholm Jr. package? I think, I broke it down yesterday on the main piece. I guess it's going to be interesting to see, what Cerner looks like. I think the main thing on the catcher specifically is that definitely from a catching perspective, it looks definitely below par at this point. The power looks legit, clearly. We may get to see it. He's on the 40-man with the Yankees, so he's on the 40-man now for the Marlins too. He's been added to the 40-man. Likely will report down to AAA. We'll wait to see how long that may be. If Josh Bell is moved, which we expect him to be, does open up a roster spot. And I think that's going to be a really interesting situation there, whether the Marlins promote Augustine Ramirez straight up to the big leagues and go and have a look. The challenge with that, this is the problem. He may be on the 40-man, which is fine. And they've utilized 1 minor league option year because he's been optioned this year. And so from a Marlins perspective, as we've seen with Max Meyer, the main thing that they're trying to control with Max Meyer is service time. And with Augustine Ramirez, he's already on the 40-man. He's already used a minor league option. At this point for the Marlins, they may want to maybe have a sneaky look at him, maybe. But in reality, this in a dead year, and probably next year is going to be dead too, this is all about reducing service time on the guys that you think could be part of the future. If the Marlins see this guy as a potential big-time player for them in the future, then they'd be wise to limit the amount of service time that these guys accrue right now. So, yes, the profile of the headliners, I would say, from both the Puck deal and the Jazz deal appear to be nearer to big league ready. And under normal circumstances, you start to get excited. I've started to see this on Twitter. People getting excited. Okay, maybe we're going to be good in 25 now. I don't think so. Gut feel is these guys end up staying in AAA for all of 2025. Both of them will have to be on the 40. One of them's already on the 40-man. But DDLS, which is now the abbreviation for De Los Santos, he isn't yet on the 40-man, but will have to be during the offseason. He'll be added, protect him from the Rule 5. But for him, and actually just brief on him, he made his AAA debut yesterday and started hot. Had a strikeout first. It was a pretty ugly strikeout. But after that, launched a 415-foot nuke into the picnic area, by all accounts, according to the guys on the play-by-play, which was very funny to hear. So launches one into the picnic area. The Marlins, there you go. You get a strikeout and a bomb. I think he was hit by pitch. I think it was a 1-for-3 day in the end. But nevertheless, an early demonstration of what he can bring and what the profile looks like. I think that's kind of what we're going to expect. It's a free swing in power swing. But again, going back to it, for Augustine Ramirez, for DDLS, these guys that are both going to be on the 40-man, both big power threats. But from a Marlins perspective, I think it's going to be about controlling the service clock. Let's not start the clock too soon. There's no point. We've seen it with Max Meyer. They kept him down until finally they gained that extra year of control. And I think the Marlins will do something similar. They will use their minor league option years wisely. They've got 3 years of that. Use them wisely. These are young dudes. There's no need to rush them. Likely the club is not going to be amazing next year. So there's no need to rush. No doubt about it. Anyway, on to Jared Cerner, because we didn't speak about him at all yesterday. He spent most of his time at high A this year and has been predominantly playing shortstop at high A. So he spent 78 games of, I think, 8 games at second base, but 78 at shortstop. So he's been playing at shortstop. From an offensive standpoint, 13 home runs, which is definitely encouraging. He had 19 home runs in 2023. So there's definitely some power there in the profile. Overall, for 2024, it's an OPS of 785. He's hitting 253, 40 walks to 60 Ks, 11 stolen bags, caught stealing 8 times, 58 RBIs. So overall, it's it looks an interesting profile in many ways. I mean, he was in the top 20 of the Yankees prospects, for whatever that matters. Actually, just on that topic, by the way, prospect lists, they mean nothing. They mean absolutely nothing. I think all that matters is go and have a look at what this guy's been doing, Jared Cerner. And for what we've seen is he's been playing a lot of shortstop. There's some power in the profile. He's hitting, pretty well at 250 thus far, 785 OPS. Like, he's only 22. He looks an interesting guy. He looks interesting. We'll see what happens. In the main, like the Marlins are just stocking sticks. I think that's the other observation here. Joe Vazzaro mentioned it the other day as well. But, another trade comes, another trade goes. The Marlins are getting back just sticks galore. No arms, not even throw-in arms. And I'm all for the headliners, but like from an organization that's, pretty good at development pitching, it's interesting that they're not looking to get any extra pitching back in any of these deals. Again, it doesn't have to be the headliners. We're completely with you. The Marlins offense, even when they've been successful and made it to the postseason for the past couple of times, their offense has still been below par. This Marlins offense, they need to find a way to get it back to, what it was in 2017, right? And a lot of those guys, big power sticks, and that's what the Marlins seem to be prioritizing now. But interesting that not one single arm back thus far. I think that probably changes. It looks like the Marlins will probably make multiple further deals. The Tampa Bay Rays are super active as well. I mean, Florida baseball, both those teams selling off pieces left, right, and center. It is pretty wild to see. But that is the model, right? We just keep seeing the model happening over and over. So Jared Cerner in. Overall, he's a guy. He looks okay. Like, I'm not super excited about the profile. I think the catcher clearly, or first baseman or DH or whatever he becomes, Augustine Ramirez is the main piece in this one. He's definitely been a trendy guy anyway, this is fair to say. We then have Abraham Ramirez, who wasn't on the top 30 prospects for the Yankees, but actually was about to be. I think he's been doing pretty well, in the complex league, I think he's been playing. So again, he's like the third piece of this one, it seems. Marlins, again, adding another younger guy. This is, I think, the interesting bit is across these trades, they are adding layers of guys with certain ages and layering them up with 19-year-olds, 22-year-olds, some guys that are close to big league ready. So overall, this trade for Jazz, again, it's going to take time, as they often do. I'm very interested to see whether this Augustine Ramirez can actually stick at catcher, because I think that does change things drastically, because it felt like from the rumors we heard that actually there were other clubs interested and other clubs got close. I think the Royals, I think the Pirates that were interested in getting something done. All of them had a catcher in the mix in return. And so Augustine Ramirez, he's the main piece of this, and the main piece that the Marlins were prioritizing positionally was a catcher. And so I think it's going to be important, extremely important, that he's able to stick at catcher, because if he doesn't, it's okay. He may be, an interesting offensive piece just generally, but it does change the value of this one. So yeah, we'll keep a close eye on this. There's a lot of new names to be following. There's a lot going on right now. It's, it's interesting. Obviously, I don't follow a lot of minor league baseball, but, it's great to see guys coming into the system. And, we're going to be, watching very closely to see how things go. And I'm very interested to see the way that these guys are actually managed. These guys that are classed as near big league ready. How quickly do we see them? How quickly do the Marlins accelerate them? How much do we believe that the Marlins are going to try and compete in 2025? Just on that topic, a lot of people talking and saying, well, the rotation's going to be fine. Sandy's going to be back. Yuri could be back. Lozado, Brax, Weathers, Max Meyer, etc. You start to list them all off, as we always do. Well, just briefly on that, I think Lozado will be moved this offseason, so let's rule him out. Yuri Perez, I don't think will pitch for the Marlins in 25. We're going to see some service time manipulation from him on his return back. So that's two of them. Sandy may be traded halfway through as well if the Marlins aren't good. So that's 3 of them gone. The other guys that are left, probably Trevor Rogers will be gone this deadline. So all of a sudden, this rotation that we're talking about now, I don't think it's going to be there. I don't think it's going to be there at all. And so I think 2025 is actually going to be a lot worse than this year. Likely no Skip Schumacher, likely worse players offensively and pitching. And so I think 25 is going to be a wash, no doubt about it. So with that being said, let's hit the final ad and let's talk about reliever value, because the Marlins have a menu of relievers and I think they should absolutely cash in wherever they can in the next couple of days with any relievers. And we've seen the market has been absolutely hot, no doubt about it. Before we do that, let's let you know about our good friends over at SupplyHouse. And SupplyHouse, you can get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trade, SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? No problem. Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM. And order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. All right, guys, final segment here, brief one on an emergency Locked On Marlins with Josh Bell being placed on waivers. Feels like an administrative action. I still believe Josh Bell will be traded, but the Marlins will eat the dough. Jazz Chisholm Jr., the full trade package. For me, it hinges predominantly on the catcher. Is the power real? And can he catch? Those are the key question marks. With Jared Cerner, I think there's an interesting profile, but right now he doesn't appear to be the headliner in this one. Feels like organizational depth in some ways. Wait to see on that. But let's talk about reliever value, because this market is heating up. There has been significant action in the reliever market. The Phils have made a move. The Padres have made a move. It looks like many teams are looking to make moves in this market. As we know, Tanner Scott, the main piece. But frankly, anyone in this Marlins bullpen could add value to a contender. Anyone. And most of them, well, pretty much all of them, apart from Tanner Scott, have multiple years of control, no doubt about it. So when we look at who's available and who the Marlins could get calls on, they could get calls on everyone. You even go back to last night's game. Look at that 3 innings from Brian Hoeing. Look at Brazaban. You then look at the previous night. Look at that performance from Declan Cronin. These guys, this bullpen as a unit has been immense for many months now, no doubt about it. So Tanner Scott's in there, Andrew Nardi, Calvin Fauché, JT Chargois, Brazaban, Hoeing. I probably missed someone. But the point being made here, Tanner Scott, obviously. The point being made is I think the Marlins are going to get a lot of calls, and I think they should pull the trigger, considering the price tag that we're seeing back. I mean, man, oh man, the Padres just went and got a reliever and sent back one of their top pitching prospects in Lexo. So, man, oh man, it's going to be an interesting market. The Marlins could really capitalize on this because they are holding, in terms of quantity, they're holding the quantity of guys that are desirable, can make a difference, and can make a difference for multiple years. It's going to be a very busy couple of days for Peter Bendix. Frankly, I can see a deal could drop at any time, frankly. And it wouldn't shock me by the end of this podcast if someone's been traded. I'm also very interested, just by the way, I haven't got time to talk about it today, probably talk about it in tomorrow's episode. I'm also very interested. I could see the Kansas City Royals being a very interesting match for Brian De La Cruz. So wait to see on that one. Guys, thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. Hopefully I've added a little bit of clarity on the Josh Bell situation, because what I realized is there was, from the group chats I'm in, there's a little bit of confusion around the situation. So hopefully you've got some clarity. Let me know your thoughts on the Jazz trade. I'm a huge fan of Jazz, but for me it hinges on the catcher and whether he can catch and whether the power plays and how quickly we see him. The Marlins have tons of relievers that have tons of value. How many of them are moved? They should move as many as they can. No doubt about it, because frankly, they need no relievers in 2025. Look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.